What up? It's Tony MC, and welcome to the next episode of the Rap Basil podcast. For those of you who are sitting at home listening to us live, let me paint the picture for you right now. We're sitting in the middle of the archive of one of the most creative engineers in Miami. He's known for his photography, and he's worked with all of Miami's top hip-hop artists and plenty others. He's known for putting on the most biggest productions during Art Basel and more. I'm here with my boy, Derick G. What's good, my G?
Man?
How you, man?
Good, man. Thank you for having me.
Nah, of course, brother. I had to get you on because this podcast specifically highlights creatives that are in our city. I know that your work has been highlighted across multiple platforms. It's been embraced by various artists. We definitely want to highlight that for sure.
Appreciate that.
First things first, I want to get into, for those of you who are at home, we're sitting inside your archive. Mm-hmm. This spot is in the middle of Miami, somewhere. It is packed with so many different historical items. Talk about like how you started collecting these items.
I mean, those that know me know I'm like a real 305 till I die kind of person. Yeah. You know, I just found current history. I guess my history. Like I focus on like late 70s, like up to like Y2K. And I was born in '83, so like right before I was born to like, I guess right when I got out of high school, I guess it's more like a nostalgia thing. And like things that bring me back to parties I went to, you know, the roller rinks I went to, things like that. And then just even things that aren't around anymore, like I'm from Hialeah, so like the Hialeah Speedway is not around anymore. I remember they used to do big concerts at Hialeah Park that doesn't exist anymore. So just like all those things. So like as I would find stuff and like, you know, I'm very proud of where I'm from. And people will rep Miami or they'll rep 305, but like I've always wanted to rep Hialeah. To me, it was very important. So like I started off with like Hialeah history, like just finding like random weird, you know, things that had like the font. Like I think we were like the only city that has like a brand per se. Like we have that specific font, right, the pink, look. And it's one of those things where I thought it was really cool. And I was just always very proud of it. So like that's what it started. And then I would just start finding other stuff like from other neighborhoods that I thought was really cool that, you know, wasn't like Miami specific, but very regional, very specific to a few blocks. Right. And I thought that was cool because like, yo, who has this? Probably like some older dude that uses that like a shirt around his hot shirt when he's gonna work on his car. He's destroying it, but it's like a piece of history. So like that's kind of like what set it off. And then obviously I started thinking about like things that aren't around anymore, the Orange Bowl, like, you know, and things that I remember being demolished and thinking, oh, whatever, who cares? We'll get a new stadium. And then you're like, damn, no, like, I wish the Orange Bowl was still here. And as a kid, you don't realize how significant or how important certain things are until they're gone. And that's the reality of it. So I kind of just started grabbing onto stuff and holding onto stuff that I thought was important. And sure enough, others I thought was important started gravitating towards me. Right. To where it's a benefit and it's a positive and a negative. The positive is that there's people that have this stuff, they have it in their closet, they know it's worth something, they don't want to throw it away, they don't want to just sell it to some reseller. 9 times out of 10 they just give it to me because they know it's going to go in the archive. Like nothing in here is really for sale. Everything in here is literally just, you know, to preserve, because eventually one day it's going to be as important as, you know, I'm not going to say the Declaration of Independence and things like that, but you never know, you know, where these things might end up. You know, Hialeah becomes the capital of Florida one day. Guess what? Derick has all the artifacts of when it was just a city. Straight up. You know, those kind of things where it's like, to me, I think there's a real significance to it. And, you know, doing my events and kind of, you know, putting some of this stuff on display, I realized that there's a huge gap in recent history that's overseen. Like if we go to a museum right now, the three of us, let's say, we're gonna see stuff about that's 100 years old, 300 years old. We can't talk to nobody about it. We can only talk to an employee at the museum that was educated on it, and we only know what he was taught. With this stuff that's, you know, like 40 years, maybe 50 years max, those people are still alive. You can have conversations with them. You can talk, you know, I put stuff on display and people be like, oh my God, like my dad used to have that, or I have a picture of, you know, me wearing that as a little kid, or, you know, I remember going to this thing and like, I don't know where I did with the shirt and things like that. Like I have like those Sábado Gigante jackets up there and like people freak out when they see them, you know what I mean? Like they're like, bro, where did you even get that from? I don't think they were for sale. I think it was like crew only, and I was able to, I found 4 of them. Wow. So it's like, as I found them, and then I told a friend of mine, and he's like, yo, I found one. He bought it, and I was like, yo, I'll trade you for it. And we ended up trading for it. So it's like, things like that to me are very, very important. And it's a good feeling when I wear something out, or like when I display something, people like, it just takes them back Because that's exactly what I felt. So to me, it's like, as we get older, these things are like wine. They're just gonna, they're gonna age more and more. So I thought about preserving them, and usually it's a government or a high-funded private situation where like people store stuff in that museum. My goal is eventually, like, if I can team up with the Miami-Dade government, and they kind of give me a space to display this stuff as like, where it can be literally on display and people can come in and whatever. There's a fee at the door, and that fee kind of helps preserve this stuff or pay the rent or whatever the case may be. Like, I don't really care to make money off of it for the most part, but just more like making sure that it survives so I could tell our story. Because our history is different than our parents' history. A lot of us are first generation here, so like a lot of our parents' history has disappeared.
Right.
Whether they're from the island or not, they didn't get to bring none of that stuff with them. All that stuff diminishes. So that was another part of it where it's like, this stuff will never be taken away from me. The day I get rid of it is I'm hoping that it goes to like someone that wants to continue the legacy of like this. I mean, this stuff is just obviously, this is amazing. This is more at a global level, but like the stuff on that side is more of just like our story as, people from the 305.
That's facts, man. Now, obviously you came up as a collector, but then you shifted into photography. So
the collecting thing just kind of happened naturally. It wasn't one of those things where it's like, this is what I'm going to do. It just kind of started happening, and I just started accumulating, and some people call it hoarding, and I just started like grabbing, and I would run into stuff, and I would buy the most random. And there's things that I think about now, like, damn, I should have bought that. Like one time I found a poster of Oscar G at the flea market, and I took a picture and I sent it to him, and he was like, he put laugh out loud. Damn. And I'm like, damn, why didn't I buy it? I should have just bought it, and I would have had it here now. Oscar's a big dog here, and it's like those things where it's like, I had so many things go through my hands that it's just like, man, who cares? And then it's like, I wish I would have bought it then. So like now I don't let nothing go. If I see something that I know can go in the archive and is gonna have significance, I kind of take it. But photography was something that kind of just happened as well. I always thought I always try to get it as an elective from middle school even through high school, and I never got it, funny enough.
Wow. And where'd you go to high school?
I went to Barbara Goldman.
Okay.
Yeah. Dope. So I always tried, and I never got it. I got TV production in '99, which was still VHS, and we weren't even digital in school yet.
AV Club.
Yeah. And that was the closest thing to like production education I ever got. Everything else was self-taught.
Wow.
So, but the photography thing was obviously came first. The stuff that I had prior to that, I happened to just keep it in a box or something in the attic. It wasn't anything that like, it was a goal of mine. Now the collection is just something more as an adult that I thought about, like, this is kind of cool. I feel like there's like a gap to it,
I know that obviously your interest in hip hop was great, but I think you were a car enthusiast first, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you really like got into shooting like that, right?
Well, cars, so the way it happened was, I'm a car guy by heart. Like, that's like everything that I love is cars. And I used to provide cars for all the music videos in Miami. Right. That's how I started getting on set. Photography was something that I would just do for fun, and back when I started, MySpace wasn't even a thing yet. So when I would go on set, smartphones weren't a thing either. So like if I was on set, I was encouraged to take photos because nobody had pictures of anybody working. So like I was everybody's like guy, because oh look, there's Derick, he's gonna get shots of us working, And to get in with the workers there, I always made sure that they were in all the shots, and I would hook them up with the photos, because then I knew when I would come around, they would help me out and accommodate me in trade-off for me giving them the photos, because they never get photos of working with celebrities. And 9 times out of 10 when you work with big names, it's frowned upon, and it's unethical to ask for a photo and stuff like that. So if I happen to if my job is to do behind the scenes, getting a photo of the gaffer with the artist it's me doing my job. Right. So if I was to tell the artist, hey, can you take a picture with the gaffer real quick, it's not frowned upon or it's weird, because that's my job. Exactly. But if the gaffer was to be like, hey, can I take a picture with you, they'd be frowned upon on him. Right. So I kind of found that niche, but like that turned into just me getting cars on set. I used to bring my camera on set, and it came to a point where like, hey, we don't need cars. Would you want to do behind the scenes? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And that's kind of like how I built my network on that, because as I would be there to shoot the cars, naturally the video girls would be in front of the car, so I'd get photos of the girls, and then the artist would be in front of the car, so I would get photos of the artists. And then, I started building a network of girls because they all wanted their photos. Right. So then I'd be on another set and they'd be like, man, we need like 4 video girls. Derek, you happen to know any of them? I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. So I started to hey, you want to be in this video? And I started like, I would do behind the scene. I would get the cars and then also help them book girls and then also do behind the scenes. So there was like a period in my career where like I was triple dipping on every set, where I was getting paid to bring cars, I was essentially a booking agent for a couple girls, and then I was also doing behind the scenes. So it was a good time. And back then there wasn't like, now you go to a video set, there's more behind the scenes than there is production.
Yeah.
So like that's why you really don't see me shoot too many rappers anymore, because like the cool thing was the exclusivity. Now it's not even about exclusive. Now it's like who's gonna post it first. So like it's not fun when it's a rat race. I enjoyed the fact that I was literally the only one there, and I could take my time. I could take 3 weeks to post the photos and nobody knew it, even the video even happened.
Right.
You know, it wasn't a rat race. We would be able to like strategically like shoot and market like the whole thing. Okay, cool, we shot the video this week, you know, we'll have the photos edited and we'll tease the photos next week, then we'll drop the behind the scenes a week after that, and all leading up to like dropping the video. And it just become like it was a whole marketing plan
the whole
prior. And you know, now it's just like, you know, who can drop it right away.
Right.
You know, so it's just a different game.
What was that one gig that like really got you on? Like, do you remember that one gig that just like basically changed your life?
The one gig that changed my life, I had already shot a bunch of music videos and I had already like been on set a bunch of times and shot a ton of artists, but the one that really like changed the game for me was Money to Blow, because that was one of the first times that a label hired me. So obviously I used to be under 305 Films with Gil and Judd.
Right.
And I would always just be on site. You know, I would make money with the cars or with the girls, and behind the scenes wasn't really something that was budgeted for. But you know, I get a couple dollars here and there, nothing too crazy. But I was just happy to be on set because we're just creating, and like it's essentially you're being around what you love, and you know, you're hanging out with, you know, people doing what you love. And I was always the youngest in the room for the most part, so I was with a bunch of OGs from Miami. And on Money to Blow, Judd was like, hey, Universal wants photos. You know, back then for photos, unedited photos of the day, and it was a 2-day shoot. I think I got paid $2,500 a day just to take pictures, which now that's $5,000 is a budget for a music video. Yeah. So just the behind the scenes, got no video, because back then the behind the scenes video was like how to make a video from like MTV, like camera crews and all that shit. I had the DSLR, I had the 5D, so I would do video. So I happen to have video vlog stuff, but I just did it because I wanted to. But I would get hired, and like obviously back then, like I said, that money back then, you know, is unheard of now as a behind the scenes guy in the industry.
It's a blessing,
you know,
for behind the scenes guys now.
And that was the same video that I finally met and spoke to Birdman. I had shot him on Always Strapped, and I forgot what other videos I was on set for, because I got all the cars for Always Strapped. It was all the red and black cars in front of Carew and Y back then. Right. But that was the first time that he had, hey, can I see the photos? And we started talking back and forth. I exchanged numbers with his nephew. And then from there, 30 days later, I'm on a private jet with them to Europe. And then that was, you know, from 2009 to 2015, I was with Cash Money. And so that was the one that it was like, the label paid me X amount of dollars, and then I got in with Bird like officially, and then that's what changed the game. And, you know, I started traveling the world, and, you know, private jets every other week, and that was like the game changer. I was, like I said, I was already shooting stuff. I had already like built a name, and Derick G was a brand already.
What was a couple of the music videos that you did? Because I know that
I directed?
A bunch that you directed or like got cars for, or all that.
Oh no, got cars for in the hundreds. Things that people would know. Yeah. Always Strapped was a big one because we got a lot of cars for that one. Amazo. Okay. Was a big one.
Shout out Black Dada.
Yeah, bro, it's so many. I can't. I'm not going blank, but it's so many. Plies, Akon, Hypnotize. Nice. Scott Storch and Julia Kova, Beep Beep Beep. She's like the Britney Spears of Russia. That was like the first time a Bugatti was in a music video. Nice. Scott Storch brought his Bugatti out. Bro, so many, I don't even know, bro. Well,
I know that one exhibit that you did in the past where I saw photos of, it was Cool and Dre, Khaled. Were they just like extras in the video, like, or was it like one of them?
No, there's a bunch of videos. I was on set of I'm On One, Champion, So Hood, Welcome to My Hood.
Yeah, you probably shot a couple of videos in that apartment complex with it.
In Overtown, we shot a bunch of that stuff. I was on a bunch of those. One of the coolest shots I have is like T-Pain getting arrested, like for the video, and it looks like a legit shot.
Oh shit.
But yeah, even like So Hood was one that I provided some cars for. But yeah, so many, bro. I don't know.
Which artists or like, you know, visual artists or musical artists at this point, like, which one of those like kind of inspired you, like during that time?
I loved seeing Miami being represented, like, I guess, like, for example, obviously in the 80s, I was born in 83, so like by the time the 90s hit, I was 7, 8 years old. I grew up in the 90s, but I was born in the 80s, right. To where like I had consciousness of like what was going on around me. Obviously seeing like a Trick Daddy and a Pit, and I know they were more like late 90s, early 2000s, but like, even me being a kid, like I gravitated more to like West Coast rap than New York rap, and in the 90s that was like one of those things, because yeah, obviously, you know, Poison Clan and booty music was its own thing. Like booty music is what we did, it wasn't what we looked at, if that makes any sense. And when you look at MTV, you're not seeing Uncle Luke videos, you're seeing Snoop and Dre, you're seeing Biggie, you're seeing Wu-Tang, and I always gravitated to West Coast rap because to me they were always in nice cars. There were, you know, old school Chevys, which is a Miami thing, which is stuff I would see here going outside. Going to car shows, you know, blue skies, palm trees. I felt more related to that than,
the LA
you know,
vibe, essentially.
Yeah, than, you know, Timberlands and big jackets on stoops. Like that's not what I would see when I would go outside. Even though California architecture is completely different than South Florida, but nonetheless, it's old school Chevys, blue skies, palm trees, you know, girls, you know, hang out. So like that was kind of like what I was really into, and I think that's what kind of got me into the car stuff, like the whole car culture. And funny enough, the car club that I got into was Individuals. It was one of the main car clubs that's in Nothing But a G thing, and it was like, I think like subconsciously I saw that and I was like, that's what I want. And I ended up being, at one point I was the youngest member in the world. So my nickname became Jit because I was literally like a kid around all these grown ass men. Oh, wow. But it was really cool because like I got to learn a lot from them. But as I got older and I started growing up and realized that Miami had its own thing, and the donk culture and the Chevy game was different here than it was in California. And I would see donks in Pitbull's videos, and I would see donks in Trick Daddy's videos, and Ross, you know, box Chevys and all this other stuff. And I'm like, damn, like, you know, we're so close to it, we don't realize it, you know. So that I was like, man, you know what, I need to start making more of an effort of embracing my culture at home, and kind of sharing that with the world and letting them know that this is a lifestyle. It's not something we do, you know. It's not, you know, like even outside, I don't know if you saw my Cadillac is outside, like I drive a 91 Fleetwood every single day. You know what I mean? People think that's like some weekend stuff, and like, nah, it's like literally my everyday car. And so if I would have to give names, it'd probably be like Trick and Pit, just because they visually painted the picture. Chico, I got the donk for that one. You know what I mean? Okay. For Trick Daddy, I got a few of them. I don't even remember anymore. But Briscoe, Lil Wayne, I'm in the hood. I got the donks for that one. They're gonna start coming to me now. But
yeah, for real. Especially from that time period, I feel like that time period between like 2000, the early 2000s, like maybe like 2002, 2000, and like up to like 2008. You know what I mean? Like that, I feel like that was kind of like a real like renaissance in Miami, because, you know, the sound was shifting away from the booty music, and it was actually starting to get like hardcore hip hop type shit. I feel like you kind of had like a front seat to that. So I guess like from what you remember, like, you know, how did you feel like witnessing that kind of like evolution from what you said, you know, like seeing like the hardcore shit, you know, like in New York and LA, to seeing that kind of like evolve in Miami?
Here, I mean, it was a little bit different because, like, for example, in 2006 was like the Khaled era. That's like when We Taking Over came out, and like that's when everything kind of
he was more of like artist DJ at that point.
Yeah, I mean, he had already done what was it called, the
Listen album.
Yeah, which was, what was the name of the song? The first song that he did, the big one with Paul Wall and Pitt and Fat Joe. Holla at Me.
Holla at Me, yeah.
Like obviously that was a big one, and like
Born and Raised.
Born and Raised was a big one, and Born and Raised, obviously you see the culture. Shout out Dio. Dio directed that. He's a friend of mine, and that was even before I was in that circle. That was 305 Films, before 305 Films had become 305 Films. Yeah. And like kind of seeing it, you know, it was weird because the difference with us here, I guess like the whole cameo thing started down here. where it's like Khaled has all these different artists from all over the country. You have cameos from Bun B, you have verses from T.I., and it's like all these different artists, and he was doing like he was doing, I guess, hip hop justice by like having all these different flows and sounds with the Miami as a backdrop. So it was just different because I never saw LA that way. I never saw New York that way. It was New York guys surrounded by other New York guys in a New York environment. Same thing with LA, Snoop, Dre, Corrupt, Warren G. It's all, West Coast lowriders, it was them. Come to Miami, it's like Miami and a bunch of out-of-towners. You know what I mean? So melting it was like, pot. So it was a melting pot. So I guess like that was just our sauce. So even you go to Atlanta's the same thing. It's all ATL, you know what I mean? Like they all just support each other, and it was just, I think it was just different down here. Our backdrop, I always say that Miami's like the playground for the country. So like everybody wants to come and play down here. Exactly. You don't really see us as South Floridians going anywhere else to do anything because we got it here. So
we live where everybody vacations. That's dope, man. And obviously, with just hip hop alone, like you've done so much, but you branched out after that. You shot other Latin artists and stuff like that as well. I know you also had a really dope shot of LeBron, like in his prime, like when he was out here in the heat. Like, when did you start like really like expanding outside of hip hop like that?
I think it started with like the agency stuff. So when I started rocking with Cash Money, like obviously that opened different doors because I got in with them in 2009 when like Young Money was born. So obviously Nicki, Drake, Tyga, obviously Wayne was Wayne. Wayne, all the rappers look the way they look now because of Wayne, with the tattoos on their face and the dreads and the whole nine. And obviously like I had front row access, I had exclusive access. I had shots and photos and videos of things that no one else can get access to. So like in anything else, marketing guys started reaching out. Even YouTube reached out to me, and I actually have a phone number for somebody at YouTube that I can call and they're gonna answer their phone, where most people have to write an email and wait for a reply.
Oh, wow.
So like back then it was, and one of those things that I didn't take advantage of, and I should have, because if I would have gotten the YouTube game back then, we'd be having a completely different conversation.
We'd have a different conversation.
But it was one of those things where like doors started opening, and then Karen Civil was handling a bunch of stuff for Wayne back then when he went to prison and all that, and we connected, and she brought me over to Beats by Dre and kind of like got me in that door, and that obviously started opening doors for stuff. And when LeBron came down here, like people don't understand why it's a big deal when somebody of that caliber moves to a certain city. Like when not talking about Bezos coming down here and like all these companies moving to Texas from California and all that stuff. Is their economies, when they move in, like the game changes. The brands that they represent follow them. So like when LeBron came here, Nike came down here, Beats by Dre came down here. They were doing stuff down here during Basel, and they'll do stuff during like WMC or like the Super Bowl was here. But like now they were doing stuff on a weekly or monthly basis because they have to shoot stuff with LeBron. And I used to work with this agency that would essentially just put me in with everybody. And I shot LeBron, I don't know, maybe like 7 times before I actually like was introduced to him. And it was one of those things where it's like, I've never been friendly to where like I try to talk to people. Like I already know everyone's trying to talk to you. I don't want to be added to that list. I'm just there to do a job and get a check. And it was one of those things where like, eventually I met one of his guys off site at another activation, and we started talking. And then fast forward to this event we did on the beach with Nike. It's called the 11/11 event. And we did it at that badass parking garage over on Lincoln Road.
Oh, okay.
Where like one of his guys was like, yo man, he wants to meet you. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, oh, LeBron, he wants to meet you. It's like he knows that you're like, he's seen your face a bunch of times, like you're the guy that always gets hired by all these companies to shoot all the stuff we need to shoot. And then cool thing was that on that physical job, I was running all the content, so I had the whole camera team. I was on a walkie. I wasn't even shooting. I was on a walkie. Right. And kind of like when LeBron arrived, they goes, oh, hey, LeBron's pulling in. All the cameras, go to this floor. We're going to shoot him getting off or whatever. I happened to run into the guy that told me he wanted to meet me and grabs me and pulls me over to finally do the proper introduction. The cool part about that was my camera team was there, so I have the initial handshake and conversation on camera from when we first officially met. And that became one of those things where like they'll hit me up every now and then to do jobs in Miami. And then once he decided to go back to Cleveland, Mav, his manager, reached out to me and was like, hey, I need you to come to Cleveland for a few weeks to come shoot some stuff. I was like, all right, how long do I pack for? He's like, oh, pack for like 10 days. I'm like, all right, cool. I was there for 62. So I just went out for the playoffs, and then from there, I essentially moved into a hotel for about 2.5 months, and essentially it was my apartment because we would fly to different cities to play the opposing teams, to Chicago, Atlanta, the Bay Area, and to Boston. And I would just come back and I'd have my car sitting at the airport in my parking spot, and like it was literally I moved to Akron for a few weeks, and that was that. And I mean, it was great because it's literally like I was shadowing him. So as the Cash Money stuff ended, that LeBron thing fell on my lap, and kind of that continued it. So like on the outside looking in, people were like, holy shit, like you just literally went from like the top of the top in music to now the top of the top in sports. But at that point, I had already built a name. That's what helped me putting my signature on everything. And I never put Derick G Photography. It was just always just Derick G.
Right.
So people didn't know what that was. Some people thought I was a black guy because I was always around all the black artists, which is hilarious. And everywhere I would go, I would get stopped. Like I would be walking into the club, and securities would always grab me. And it was literally one other dude that was with us. This dude Josh was a white boy. He would be with us, and he'd always have to come back and be like, yo, he's with us. Because Josh would go in and kind of do all the preliminaries, like, hey, we're pulling up at this time. So when they arrived, head of security knew who he was. But then when I'm walking in with the camera, I would get stopped, and they would have to come back and grab me. Cool story with that is one time we were at Cameo, and Drake and Wayne were hosting New Year's Eve. So as we're walking in, it happened to me at the door. One of the guys grabs me and pulls me back in. As we're going upstairs, I don't even remember, Cameo used to be like layers, and you'd have like the top thing. As we're walking up the stairs, same thing happened to me. Security guard threw the rope in front of me, and I'm like, yo, I'm with them. Some dude comes down and is like, hey, he's with us. I had no idea who the dude was. He grabs me and shakes my hand and goes, yo, I always see you with Stunna. It was Future the Prince. It was Drake's now manager. Back then, he's like, yo, I've always seen you with Stunna. Like, I always see you, so like, I know you're good. And me and him became really good friends just because of that. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where, you know, I always knew my place. I always was there to work. I never hung out more than I had to. Like as soon as I was done working, I would dip out. And I noticed that all my clients, whether it be on the Cash Money side or on the LeBron side, they always saw that that's what I was there for work. I wasn't there to hang out. I wasn't there trying to be friends. Right. Because I learned very quickly that if you act like a fan, they treat you like a fan. And then, you know, if you become too friendly, they start asking you for favors they used to pay you for. Yeah. So like that's always been my guideline. Like I have enough friends at home. Like, you know, I know enough people. I'm just here to work, do a good job, stay out of the way, and then, you know, chime in when I need to. Right.
Damn, that's a great way to go, man. Trust me. We all learn that lesson sometimes. Yeah. What would you say, I guess, like, when your time producing events started? Like, when did you start getting into that?
So funny, I've always done little things, and I never realized that it, you know, I actually realized like a year and a half ago where it's like my entire life has been preparing me for that. Where like getting my first real opportunities with just me doing my own events, but then like I'll have like agency guys. The cool thing about the agency world is that they're all employees, so they bounce around from agency to agency. As long as you do good work for them, whatever agency they go to, when they come to Miami, they're gonna hit you up. And I kind of build different relationships that way. I learned too that as a photographer, because content is so disposable now, that, you know, and this is not everybody, this is just like on certain, but it's happened to me multiple times, so I'll say it this way. But like when I used to be, I was on a specific job where like I helped above and beyond. Like I helped the event happen, like via email, through connecting the dots. Like I was literally the plug for everything for this brand and for this agency. But on the day of, they were like, hey, do you want to shoot it too? And I was like, oh yeah, I'll get another check, I'll shoot it. The people who, like, the right people and my friends knew like everything I had done for them, and I did it for them, right? You know, I got a little check here and there for it, but I did it for them. But then I would meet people with my camera in my hand, and they're like, hey, this is so-and-so. And they'll just be very dry, like, hey, what's up? Like, they didn't care to meet the camera guy. Like, oh, you're just here shooting content, whatever. And like, who cares? Mm-hmm. But then, like, in that span of 5 minutes, someone else would walk into the room, and my guy would be like, hey, this is so-and-so. And they'd be like, oh, are you the Derick from the emails? And my guy would be like, yeah, this is him. He's like, yo, thank you for all the help. Thank you for everything you did. And then the other person that was really dry would be like, oh, you're him? Yeah. And then the attitude and the demeanor would change. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, now you know my importance level per se, right? And I don't really care, like, you know, whether you rock with me or not, but it just realized, like, sometimes it's better to be an exec. Yeah. So like on the next big job that I got with this client, I was like, hey man, if you don't mind, like I don't want to shoot it. I'll put the whole content team for you together, but I want to produce it. Like I'd rather just be like a producer for you. I'd rather just be on Milwaukee and just kind of like, you know, and he was like, yo, no problem, easy. And that's exactly what he did for me. And even when it came down to like creative, like they presented this idea that was very like cookie cutter, cheesy, generic from Miami. And I was like, hey man, like, you know, I'm from here. You want to show people like a real Miami experience? Let's do it this way. We can still add in a little bit of what you want to do, but let's do it this way. He's like, bro, you know better than me. Like, so I put a whole thing together for them. I presented it to them. He's like, yo, how do you feel talking directly to the client? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we have to get on a Zoom with like 40 people and like all the top execs of this, and it's a big crypto company. And I was like, I'm cool if you're cool. Usually like agencies will never connect you directly with their clients because they fear that you're going to snatch the client from them, or that they're going to, you know, the client's not going to hire them anymore. They're just going to hire you directly. And you know, that's not my place to do that kind of stuff. And my guy knows that. He's like, bro, I'm secure in where I'm at. Like, we're good. Like, if you feel comfortable, I'll put you in front of them and I'll let you just basically explain your entire idea. And that's exactly what happened, and they loved it, and they powered through with it. So I went from on the job prior just being like the guy who was hired for content to like connecting a lot of dots to them to like essentially being the local producer for them down here.
Nice.
And then that allowed me budget to hire people to do stuff that either I would physically do myself. So now it's like all these people are like, oh, wait a minute, now you got budget. Now you're more like, you're just kind of delegating everything. So like, you're a producer. And I'm like, yeah. So then that started becoming a thing where it's like, hey, we need help producing this. Or like people are like, hey, what have you produced? And when I start saying the clients and the agency's names, they're like, oh, you're the local producer for that? I'm like, yeah, here's everything. Here's the behind the scenes. Here's everything. Because I shoot everything that I do. Because eventually, like, you know, some people are going to be like, oh, no, we did that. I was like, no, we did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Here's everything.
Yeah,
you know?
proof.
So that kind of was like what opened the door for it. And then I started, obviously 305 Fest was a great event, and I produced that entire thing myself. Last year, or earlier this year, we did live on 305, which was an amazing turnout as well.
And we'll talk about that.
So all that stuff is just essentially getting paid to better my craft, to better my events. So it's kind of just like a cycle. So like I was just doing myself, figure out car hangouts, car shows, you know, parties. I used to do the Mondrian for 3 years, doing the parties there. So even producing that, and mind you, that's not crazy. That's a flyer, maybe some floaties, booking a DJ.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it all falls under that production hat where like, okay, we have to produce a good time.
Right.
And you know, that's kind of like, it was just some are bigger, some are smaller.
When did you start getting into Art Basel? When did you start getting booked for that?
Over 10 years ago, I don't even remember.
Really?
Yeah, I did Basel for a long time. Last year was the first time I actually didn't do Basel for a big brand. You know, I was able to team up with the team over at Museum of Graffiti, Allison and Ket, and we got to get more creative than just, you know, I missed the check, I'm not gonna lie, because, you know, those corporate checks are great, but I had a different perspective. I actually got to enjoy Basel. Usually I'm working Basel, you know, and like I'm not complaining. Trust me, I want to work Basel this year. It's a great little bonus for the year financially, but yeah, I've been doing Basel for a really long time.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't even remember how long ago, but I know it's been over 10 years.
You know, outside of Basel and, you know, doing those kinds of different events, obviously you said that you produced different events, and one event that you did really recently was the YouTube event, Leaders and Legends for Cash Money. Obviously, with your ties with them, it just made sense. So talk about that. Like, what went into that? What did you get to experience?
So on that one, just to correct that, I didn't produce the event.
Oh, okay.
So I was brought in to help with content packages and produce all the 3D mapping for it. So the producer for that event is this woman named Hannah. She's based out of Atlanta. Her company is called MVP, it's Music Business Politics. Okay. She's the one that did like the 21 Savage Freaknik party in Atlanta.
Nice.
She does like she just did 50 Cent's thing. I forgot what it's called, but she's a big dog. And funny story with her is I got introduced to her by one of my guys, Steve Kane's barber, where he doesn't even know her, but he was friends with one of her clients, and they were doing a paid in full party, and they needed a bunch of cars from the paid in full era, so like the BMWs, the Audis, the Saabs, and all that stuff. So as somebody that knows me as a car guy, I got contracted to like find all these cars to be kind of like just parked in the front of the space. So as you walk in, and the party was for Amari Cooper, the football player. So he's from Miami, so he does his birthday party here all the time. So he has like his friends and family come out or whatever. And so she was producing the event for YouTube. And one day I get a text saying, hey, are you a photographer? Once again, like I have clients now that don't know my photography career, and I'm like, yeah. She's like, can I call you? So we got on the phone. She's like, you never told me you did content. I was like, I did tell you I did content, but whatever. Me and her have a funny relationship. She's like, hey, look, I'm doing this thing for YouTube with Cash Money, and Vicky told me to hit you up. Vicky's an exec over at Cash Money. Yeah.
Shout out to her, man. She's dope.
Vicky's great, and obviously Vicky knows me from when I first started with them back then. And Vicky told Hannah, hey, call Derick. Because she's like, oh, I know a Derick G in Miami, but he's a car guy. She's like, nope, call him. That's the same Derick G. I know he's a car guy, but call him. And we got on the phone, and she explained to me what they needed. And we got involved and we made it happen. So they needed a bunch of content packages to kind of play on screen. So essentially, like 2 to 3 minute edits of like storytelling. Okay. So we got handed that because obviously I have all the original content from my era with them. Right. Along with stuff that they had sent me over to kind of use to tell these stories. And then they also needed to 3D map the room and bring it to life, so I got assigned to do that as well. So I brought my guy Kevin in to help me kind of produce all that stuff. So creatively I came up with all the ideas with obviously Hannah and Vicky and the Cash Money team kind of like, hey, we want to see this, we want to see that, like we want to see money and diamonds and all this stuff. It's kind of placing it in the room. And then I sat with Kevin and we physically like put it together and laid the whole thing out. And then with my guy Romeo was able to story to all the editing stuff, so I had to like go through all the stuff they sent me plus go through my archive of stuff and just kind of put together the folders to send to him and edit the whole thing. So more of like a digital content producer for this one, not an actual event producer for this one, but nonetheless, like what a great I know, that's what a crazy. Great I was in great company, like dealing directly with the team at YouTube, a bunch of great people. I met a lot of great people, and I got to meet a lot of people who knew my work. I never got to put a name to the face or whatever. Nice. So it was cool because even when we flew to LA for the event, I ran into so many people I hadn't seen. I stopped working with Cash Money like officially like 2015. That was 9 years ago. Yeah. So I haven't seen a lot of those guys since then. So even running into like a lot of like Stunna's old friends, like friends that are still around, and they saw me like, oh, DJ, what are you doing here? And it's like I helped YouTube on this, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So it was really cool. And then I was like, oh my God, you got gray hair now. I was like, oh, you have a baby now. And now I was just a kid with a backpack back then, so it was a different time, man, but very grateful for that. It's just something else to add to the resume.
Nah, for sure, man. And obviously with your ties to them and everything that you've done for them, it just made sense. Yeah. Cash Money is such a great team. Like I've worked with them personally too. Shout out to Maddie B, Vicky, Chris, all them. Like they're great to work with. I'm pretty sure they're gonna be calling on you for other stuff in the future.
Hopefully, yeah. I finally got to meet Maddie this year on this project, and we connected like instantly. Like it was like we knew each other forever. So it was definitely. I have no complaints about this experience. It was not an easy experience. It was a lot of ups and downs at the beginning, but once we locked in, and we made some really cool stuff happen.
That's dope. Now, what you mentioned earlier, you put on an event called Live on 305. Yeah. Talk about that. Like what went into that event? Why'd you want to do it?
So obviously out here in Miami on March 5th, we celebrate 305. It's 305 on the calendar. We represent the crib. We represent our area code probably more than anywhere else. Anywhere. And it's one of those things where like I used to be a part of a team that does this event, and I just felt like we had just creative differences, right? Like we have different 305 experiences. So I felt like my experience was very absent from what, they were trying to do, and it didn't line up. So I decided to part ways and just kind of do my own thing. And that's exactly what Live on 305 is. I kind of did like a trial and error event the year prior on 2023 called 305 Fest. And it was on a Sunday, big venue, like I literally tried everything I wanted to try, and everything worked. I got support from the city. I got Udonis Haslam came out, Giancarlo Canella came out, EFN and the whole Crazy Hood team came out. Shout out to them. Yeah, and then just like a bunch of people, like some of the Seahawks team came out from from the 80s cigarette boat era. Oh wow! Like they were out there doing stuff, and then just obviously like a lot of local creators and stuff like that. And it was a Sunday, so I was like, hey, if this works on a Sunday. Like if I'm gonna test it, I'm gonna test it on a day where it would work good, Sunday, and it was a success, like beyond my expectations, and like I realized how many people felt the same way I felt about experiencing 305 the way I experienced it. So it was like a high school reunion. You just took me back to like, you know, the late 90s, like what the Miami before social media, the Miami before all the big moves, everybody started moving down here and all that stuff. And that's kind of like what it is, like a little moment of nostalgia. Fast forward to this year, I switched up the name. And this year was on a Tuesday. I'm a big believer that 305 should be celebrated on the day, not the weekend before, not the weekend after, or not the day that, you know, best suits it. But if you're about that life, if you're about that 305 life, you're gonna come out whenever we do it. And that proved itself. We did that Tuesday, doors opened at 3:05 p.m. and we went till 11, and flow of traffic all day long. You know, all the DJs loved it. All my vendors were happy. All the press was great. All my sponsors were happy. I even gained work from that. I have a client now that was a sponsor of the event. They were so happy with the event that they asked me to come on board and help them activate, you know, in their flagship down here. And that just all came from like them seeing that, like, how much I really do care, and like the authenticity and how genuine of like making sure that we tell our Miami story. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like tapping in the right way. So like I said, I did it, and you know, you don't make real money off of those things yet until like I get like a Budweiser or like a, you know, GM, big, like a big you know, sponsor, to like where I can make money before doors even open. Like we're not there yet. We hope to get there, but this next year it'll be on a Wednesday, and you better believe I'm doing it that Wednesday.
What would you say is your magnum opus so far? It could be a photo, it could be one of your events, it could be just a moment of recognition, any of that.
That's tough, bro. I have no idea, bro. I mean, event-wise, it'd probably be like my personal events, just because like it's me. I'm in full control, full creative, and just seeing like the getting the pats on the back and like the text messages the next day. Even like the text messages in the morning of. I did a post of like everyone sending me just like positive vibes, like out of their own, which I thought was dope. Like people woke up and thought about me and like text me like, yo, have an amazing day, today's your day, like, yo, the city fucks with you. So like that's just good, because it just shows that like I'm putting the right effort in the right place for the right group of people. It might not be for everybody, but it was for the right group of people. And like I'm happy, you know, I always say like whether I throw an event and 5 people show up and they have a blast, or 500 people show up and they have a blast, like, you know, finances are not always the best, but I'm just grateful that, you know, those people had a good time and they're going to talk about it. And essentially like I'm always in for the long game. I'm never around for the quick flip. You know, that's probably one of my better flaws. Because it's like a lot of people like, oh, you got to think about like getting in, flipping again, and I'm not like that. Like I obviously I hold on to stuff and just waiting for like the right, you know, play chess, not checkers.
That's fact.
You know what I mean?
I would say, you know, personally, because I've seen your work in the past, especially the Art of Hip Hop exhibit that you did. I think that's definitely one of your greater.
Oh, no. See, I didn't think about that.
I think that was definitely one of your greater moments for sure. Talk about a couple of the photos that you included in there.
I try to kind of just like stick to things that people would kind of like pay mind to, because, you know, essentially the person in the photo is important, but to me the photo itself, if that person wasn't famous, that photo's still gonna be as impactful. That's kind of how I look at stuff, right? There's like a cool portrait of Birdman that I shot on set of 100 Million, and I didn't even know him back then. I wasn't working with him back then. I don't even think I got paid to be there that day, to be honest with you. But that was one of the videos that I helped with the cars. So in 100 Million, it was Birdman, Wayne, Young Jeezy, and Ross. The whole concept of all the red cars in the room, I came up with that. Gil was directing it, he was writing the treatment, and I mentioned to him, I was like, yo, it would be dope, like he loves red cars, like why don't you do a whole room of red cars? I know I can make it happen. So he presented it, they came back that he loves the idea, and then he was like, yo, get on it. So they had the art department kind of find a bunch of the supercars that were there in the front, but then there's 3 old schools in the back, and those were the ones that I brought in. And those were like the highlight cars, because those were the ones that he's rapping in front of. And that portrait that I took of him, that's at Art of Hip Hop, was him right there. Birdman was like, hey, you mind if I take a portrait? He was wearing like the satin Gucci with the monogram all over it, and it's just dope. And I shot that thing with like I didn't even have the Canon, the DSLRs didn't even exist yet. It was just a Canon Rebel. So like I don't even have video from that day, which is crazy. But that was a big one for me. Another one in there is a photo of Cardi B when she was Bacardi. before the music, before social media, before love and hip hop. I was in New York, I forgot for what, and I had hit up some of the homies. They have an agency called FaceTime, and I was like, man, line up a bunch of girls from New York that want to shoot, and I just go shoot around the city. I rented a 15-passenger van and kind of just scheduled the girls throughout the city, and I would just like pick up points and drop out points at like the different train stops. And she was one of the last girls of the night, and she was super like simpática. I always say, like, she was just funny, and like the person you see on TV, same attitude, same demeanor, like just she was having a good time. Like, she was funny. She didn't have hair on her tongue. Like, she was just a funny chick, and she was just having fun. But we're just all having a blast, and she was real cool. And obviously then I started seeing her on social media. I was like, oh, that's the chick that I shot in New York. And then, oh, she's on Love and Hip Hop, because she was funny on social media, and I know that's kind of like the tie-in that she got into Love and Hip Hop. And then the rapping thing happened, and it was just like it blew up for her, and I'm so happy for her, because like, I haven't seen her since that day I shot her. She's shot a bunch of videos in Miami, and I've never been on any of those sets. It's one of those things where like we always miss each other, like, and I've always wanted to like reconnect with her and just be like, to see if she even remembers, so much things have happened in her life in the last, I think it was I think I shot her in 2013, so it was 11 years ago. But that's one of the pictures I put up there. And then obviously there's like Pitt, Trick, Trina. There's a photo of Ross in there. I obviously put like, my Miami guys in there. Photo of Khaled from Gold Slugs.
Kodak Black.
Kodak's up there. That was more recent. I shot that for Spotify. And yeah, man, it was just one of those things where like I wanted South Florida to represent, and obviously the Birdman thing, even though he's not from here, that's a big thing for me. So it's like when people see that, they time me, oh, the Cash Money, oh, okay, cool. And I put my signature on the walls. Like I said, like my biggest thing, or like my best chess move has always been like branding everything that I do with my name, because it's always like recognizable. I'm funny enough, getting off on an airplane in Costa Rica the other day. I'm with my family, literally with my kid and my girl. And the stewardess that was helping us like the entire time, walked by a million times, gave us her drinks, whatever. As I'm getting off the plane, I guess he saw the tattoo, and he's like, oh shit, that's Derick G. And like my girl heard it, my girl smiled at him, and she's like, is that him? He's like, yeah, that's him. So it's funny because it's like, that recognition, like, and I've never cared to be famous. I don't care about fame. I've realized that fame comes with a huge price. With you pay your privacy and your freedom for fame, and I never, I love the fact that I can roll around by myself all the time, and if you know, if you don't know, who cares? And it's one of those things where like I can roll around freely and not worry about that, because like I said, I've been with a lot of, obviously I've lived multiple lives vicariously through clients, and kind of see the normal stuff I could do, they could never do, because they're so famous. And it's just like the simplest things, like going to Walmart or like going to go grab a burger or some shit,
Exactly.
With LeBron, we used to do funny shit. I'll go to like, there's this burger spot in Akron called Swenson's. It's probably my favorite burger spot in the world, and to my knowledge, they only exist in Akron. And then they have a food truck that would go to Cleveland, because it's like 45 minutes out of Cleveland, to go pop up at the games. And then one time I met with LeBron to go shoot something at some clinic, and I walk in with a cup from Swenson's, and LeBron goes, oh man, you went to Swenson's? And I'm like, hell yeah. He's like, what's up, you want to go back after? And I'm like, yo, let's ride. And we went in his Ferrari, and it's funny because his Ferrari's tinted, but it's convertible. So like all you just see is his head sticking out. So we pull up, and it's cool because everyone in Akron gives him his space. It's really, really cool.
Oh, that's good.
Like we pull up, they're like, hey, good afternoon, what would you like to eat? We took our orders, boom. He never asked for food, he never said his name, nothing. He obviously knows who it is. We're sitting in a chrome red Ferrari. You know what I mean? And I filmed the whole thing, which is hilarious. But it's cool that when we went to like other different places, like we went to a soccer game that his son was playing, and this is when they were little boys. And you walk on, and everybody's hanging high to him like a father, not as LeBron James, the NBA, superstar. So I guess back home was that, and Cleveland was a different story, and everywhere else we went was a different story. But the branding was always the thing that helped. In New York, I got recognized on the subway. I was standing on the subway holding onto the bar, and there was a kid in front of me sitting up. He looks up at me and literally just his head up, goes, yo, are you the one that does all the Cash Money stuff? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh, I saw that Bow Wow thing you posted earlier today, and I happened to just post a Bow Wow vlog or something for a video or something that morning. So the branding was like the best thing that I could have ever done.
I'm actually going to show you my favorite photo that you've ever taken. Are you ready?
Huh?
All right.
That's funny. That's SoundCloud. That's funny.
You told me how to pose and everything like that. You were literally like doing your thing. And this was the SoundCloud event that you did for Basel 2 years ago.
Yeah, Next Wave, 2022.
Yeah. That's definitely my favorite
That's
one.
funny. So. Great photo.
Yeah, right, for sure.
See, that was another one that I helped with the creative. I have Activate. I was actually hired through SoundCloud before they hired the agency that produced the physical event. I brought the whole content team in. I helped with the layout. Essentially, they took my rendering and gave it to the agency and like, this is what we're gonna do. And just because it's when you deal with certain brands, and obviously there's certain money involved, usually anything that's like 6 figures plus, they want to be able to deal with an agency that has that kind of money flowing that they can cover. You know, me as an individual, I don't have that. Like, I can't front, 6 figures to cover an event. These agencies are built for that. That's why they're brought in to kind of like, and then they'll get paid on the back end and they make their money. Yeah. But like, that was the whole situation when the people that brought me in, they're like, look, we have to bring in this agency because it's the whole money funneling thing, like where they have to like handle X amount of dollars or whatever the case may be. I was like, yeah, no problem. I still got my check. I still got to do everything I wanted to do. And then they also highlighted me as an activation, as like, come shoot with Derick G. So nice. It was cool because I got to hire the content team. I got to hire an actual production team for the physical event. And then I got to shoot as myself and people were lining up. So it was kind of cool. And I did a whole little photo gallery where people got to see a lot of photos that I had taken, throughout the years and whatnot. And that same year was the last year that we had, I was actually doing that event and actually shooting for Meta down the street, which was, they had just turned into Meta, but it was Facebook, Instagram, down the block with a completely different entire content team. So it's nice. Like, those Basel checks are amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. So last part I want to do is called Open Canvas. Mm-hmm. I want you to describe like what your dream masterpiece would look like. It could be an event. It could be a photo. It could be anything that you've always wanted to do.
I've always wanted to do like a solo exhibit. Okay. So a mixture of my photography, a mixture of like, the event itself would be an event, so the activations would all be like actually come from my head. Then like an entire photo gallery of just like my favorite photography, not just hip hop, but like the Happy Meal and like all this other stuff that I've done, that kind of stuff. And then even just like a history lesson of Miami. Like if I can essentially show you like, if this room could be an event, and like everything had its space and there was DJs and a bar and food and all that kind of stuff, like essentially like I would want Live on 305 to become that, where it's like, the first year when I did 305 Fest, I actually had a photo gallery wall highlighting Miami photographers with Miami subject matter. So it's like photos of Miami by people from Miami, and that was like a big thing for me. And then I even did an exhibit inside for Mr. Neon. Obviously, I love neons, and we highlighted him like, I don't think he's ever been highlighted. Mr. Neon is responsible for the neon you see in Miami Vice. Right. He essentially helped with the landscape of what, we're known for as Ocean Drive and all that stuff. He's had his hand on all those buildings. New York, they do the ball drop. Here we do the orange rays. He's the one that handles that. So like, I thought it was important to honor him while he's still with us. He's an older gentleman now. His shop is still in Hialeah. So it's just kind of like if the 305 theme park, I guess it would be, and like, just highlighting, I guess, my art amongst it, but it's just like that perfect storytelling of like who we are, what we do, how we rep,
Who are your favorite photographers or creatives nowadays?
Well, now I'm on this little YouTube thing, man. I love YouTube so much. It's like, I wish like I said, if I would have gotten on it when they were on me, we'd be having different conversations. We'd probably be like in a penthouse with like interviewing next to like a helicopter or something. I would have got in back in 2007. But things happen the way they need to, Maybe I would have not got to experience everything I experienced, I have like a lot of favorites for different things. I don't want to mention any of them because I don't want to miss one. And then just, I have a lot of people. And then there's people that are good for art, and then there's people that are good for work. So like, there's guys that I love what they do for fun, but I can't hire them because it wouldn't make sense because they don't understand like the task at hand. Right. But if I just want cool shit, I'll buy their shit just for my house or for my office because, it's dope. Yeah. They're shooting what they want. They have no guidelines. They have no they have no one, you know, they do whatever they want and they put it out there and I become a fan and I buy it. But then there's people that like, their art's cool, but they're good at following direction and it takes great photos, so I can hire them and put money in their pocket. So it's tough. It's a tough one. I get, you know, that kind of stuff. It's really, really tough just to pinpoint somebody when, you know, there's so even much. Art of hip hop, like I said it there, it's like, I'm in that room with people that I used to take, you know, pictures that they were in magazines. I used to rip them out and put them in my binders. And I didn't know who that person was. Now they're on my phone, and now I can have a conversation. Now I'm mentioned with them in, you know, in reports and in press and in news. And these were guys that, like, I was in high school and I had their CD book in my binder as like a book cover because you know I liked it. You know, Jonathan Manning being one of them. You know what I mean?
Word, yeah.
Esteban Oreo being another. And like these are guys. Esteban not so much. Cartoon, me and Cartoon are homies. Esteban, I see him and we say what's up, but like I don't have a relationship with him. Cartoon, I could say I do. But like Mannion, I was talking to Mannion yesterday through the DM. He posted something funny and I replied to it and we just, you know, caught up real quick.
Nice.
But like, you know, Mannion's a G, bro. What he's done in his lifetime, and bro, you can have a full on. He doesn't know you'll have a full on conversation with you. He's just kind of very grounded, you know, and just a good guy. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where like he can walk around and if you know who he is, it's amazing. If you don't know who he is, it's great because it's like he still has his privacy. And, but like all the right people know who he is. You know, he'll walk into a room with big dogs, and all the big dogs in that room,
they know who he is.
They'll walk up to him and go say hi to him, and then you makes you wonder like, yo, who's that guy? You know, so that's kind of like a cool superpower in that sense. But locally, man, there's so many dope people down here. You know, if I'm gonna mention one, I'll probably mention Estris Talusma, which is Photo T. He's probably like one of like my favorites down here. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Like one of those that he stays in his own lane. He does his own shit. I even had him take like my son's baptism pictures with us just because I wanted his style, you know, and it's like one of those things that I never posted. It's for us at home, and it's just like I just love his style of photography. You know, I'm the one that got him into art of hip hop. I presented him to the team, and like he has a great exhibit in there as well, and it's, you know, good dude, you know, very humble, amazing artist, tapped into the culture, and he never forgot where he's from. He's from the crib, and he reps it all the time.
That's facts, and so do you, man. Everything you do is dope, and I'm glad that we got to be able to go over everything that you did, man. So tell the people where they can follow you at, and all your businesses and everything like that.
I mean, easiest thing is just Derick_G on Instagram. It's probably like, I post everything on there. I'm not on TikTok or any of that other stuff. I might be on YouTube soon though.
Alright, we'll look out for that too.
I'm working on something, so
do it.
But yeah, like if you want to just tap in like Instagram, Derick_G is probably the best way to tap in.
Dope, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for sitting down with us. You already know at home, I'm Tony MC. Make sure to follow me at _Tony MC and follow the podcast Rap Basil 305 on Instagram, X, everywhere that you find your social media at. And of course, before you go, you gotta hit that like and subscribe button at the bottom there. You already know what it is. Peace.